Welcome to the Live Lounge, everyone, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show FINNEAS, everybody. Hi, Finn.
What's up, dude? Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, and thank you so much for coming in and doing this for us as well. We are essentially going to dissect the brand new album from FINNEAS, For Cryin Out Loud. Finn has bought his laptop, demos, we've got the piano on hand, so we're going to really be able to bring this album to life for you. And there are so many different parts where I actually could start, but I think I want to start at Sweet Cherries, if that's okay.
Sure.
Lots of different things to love about Sweet Cherries. I like how it feels like a sort of classic 7-inch double A-B side in some way, the way you kind of have one part, you stop, and you begin the second part.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to start with when the first part does stop.
Yeah.
And one of your band members goes,
It's
I
really
think we're
loud.
cooking vibes.
That's me saying that.
Oh, that's you, is it? All right.
So I think we're cooking Miles. Miles is the name of the drummer.
Oh.
And we, you're trying your best to kind of be mixed,
Yeah.
But Marinelli was on a synthesizer and he just like cranked it and he did this crazy chaotic synth moment.
Yeah.
And the drummer, it was so loud in the drummer's headphones that he like got thrown off because he couldn't even hear the click or whatever we were on. So I stopped. I was like, all right, I think we're cooking Miles in the booth. And then Miles, who says about one word a day, was like, yeah, super loud. And then we started over.
Cooking Miles, but also cooking vibes, to be fair as well.
Fair enough, yeah.
I mean, obviously you stopped because you were feeling quite intense in the moment on that piece of music.
Yeah.
You could have picked up, started again, finished it off a different way, but you decided to kind of almost incorporate a different song as the second half. Talk to us about Sweet Cherries a little bit.
So Sweet Cherries in general, and it was it was unique to this track listing because most songs we went in, me and a bunch of people in the same room at the same time, we'd start with nothing, and I'd write lyrics and melody as everybody started writing their parts, and then by the end of the day, we'd have everything. And Sweet Cherries was the 6th day we were together doing this, and I had no good lyric ideas. And so I was just mumbling all day. But everybody was making stuff I really liked. And so I had this feeling of like, I don't want to lose all this good material just because I'm uninspired today. And so we just jammed and jammed and jammed. We had this like 7-hour jam. And it was all really exciting, but again, I wasn't sort of structuring it or able to kind of put it all together. And so I went home with this like 25 gigabyte file of 8 hours of everybody, and then started going through and editing it together. And so that's sort of why it's one song, and then it has a little break, and it's another song. And both of those songs are probably the most kind of chopped and screwed of anything on the album.
And do those two songs, do they have synergy in any way? Do they have connection for you?
I ended up writing about the same kind of person and motif in both, even though they sort of sound like totally separate songs. So they're kind of about the same person, which made me happy.
And then at the end of the song, we've got another one of your band members going, I like the... Who is that?
Lucy Healy, who is an amazing producer-songwriter. She wrote that song, Rockstar, the Lisa song.
Yeah, we love that tune. We made that tune of the week on the show.
She's great.
Big pop tune.
She's an amazing songwriter, and I got to know her from working with an artist named Lexi Jade last year, and I was like, who is this writer-producer? Like, this is often how being a writer-producer goes, is you hear other people, and you're like, this is inspiring to me. And so when I put this sort of band together, so to speak, to do this album, I was like, do you want to do a couple days? And, she could have come in for a day or two and been like, this is lame, and, left. But we were all having so much fun that she ended up doing pretty much the whole thing.
Can we hear the part that she's actually referring to? Because it's actually probably my favorite part of the song as well.
It's such a cute part, right?
Yeah, talk us through how maybe you made the sound and why you liked it, why you guys liked it so much.
I'll pull it up. It's a cool session.
Yeah.
1 second, and we'll just jump right into it. It's just loading my plugins, popping up. I mean, we did all this jamming, and I tried to be pretty. I tried to not play as many instruments on this album because I typically play everything, and I thought it might be the most sort of adventurous and explorative for me to just be reactive and let other people. I mean, you play instruments. It's like your brain has places you like to go.
Yeah.
You like to go to this chord and then this one, and so to not have to rely on my own sort of sensibilities was a fun experience because I was able to just kind of be reactive to the whole process.
Is that in the respect of you have other people in the room bringing their ideas to things and all of a sudden you've got different...
Exactly. So here's the part we're talking about. Then this happens over here. So So it's a kind of like,
it's all doing a dance together, really, isn't it? It's all kind of
call and response. Yeah, it's just that fun little sort of marriage of parts, right?
I love
they're all
hearing
interacting.
that because
So fun.
What I see in my head is you guys like face to face across the room
Straight
from
up.
each other, smiling
Yeah.
at each other as you're kind of doing these little call and response
And that's
bits
exactly how it went. And I think, again, it's a little like this whole album, the thesis behind this whole album was sort of like, if you're having more fun while you're making a thing, is it going to make it more fun to listen to? And in this song's case specifically, like that's a yes for me. That's a thing that, again, we wouldn't have had that if it was like this. It was like you and me sitting here and I'm playing this keyboard part and he's riffing it on guitar. And it's like, again, if I had been alone in a room, I might have had that idea, maybe, and I might have done it, and I might have thought, this is fun. But it was so infectious that you're like, we got to put that in. And then you have Lucy right at the end of it, literally saying, we finished the thing, and she literally says,
I love that.
so funny. Such a cute clip. But yeah, just kind of like being reactive to the whole thing. And I liked to leave the sort of like the ends of the songs a little untied, a little bit unchopped. It's a really fun process.
Can you play the full clip again at the end?
Yeah, sure.
That bit there.
Where it all
The kind of-
chops.
yeah, the chop.
So I ran like the whole band through a tremolo plugin, which proved to be a little bit of an albatross, but I couldn't resist. It just sounded so cool. So you can see there's tremolo automation here that turns on and off. So the whole band isn't tremolo, and then it turns on.
Nice.
And here's the plugin doing a rhythm that we kind of customized. And then I turn it off for the drum fill. And it adds this like crazy sort of like neck movement. And if you turn it off, it's pretty regular.
It's that little added touch, that little sprinkle just to finish things
and
off.
initially I only
Sounds
had it
really
on
nice.
the very outro of the song, and I just thought it was so weird that I was like, this is like, and also sometimes I think, you know, again, a lot of this album was like a bunch of people in a room and everything live, and you know, but that being said, it's like sometimes I take the files and then I do something that could never have been done live in the room, and that's also part of the appeal.
You're kind of handed in part someone else's work actually, and you're all of a sudden, what can I add to this?
I'm doing a it's like remixing.
It is.
Yeah, straight up.
Am I right in saying you kind of didn't have this band before stepping into making
No,
the
I mean,
album?
this band is really just a group of really talented producer-songwriters that I'm friends with. And specifically Marinelli, who plays a bunch of synths on this album, he and I have been friends, and we played in bands in high school, but we haven't really been on stage together in like 10 years. And this really, the whole sort of experience was like, all right, I knew that Billie was about to launch like a world tour. I knew that if I wanted to do any sort of solo music at the same time, it would probably mean touring separately. It would probably be a sort of a departure. And I was like, well, the most fun version I can imagine of that is if my other close friends, you know, I've been touring for 7 years kind of with my best friend in Billie. And so I'm like, if I'm not touring with Billie, I better be touring with like my other really close friends, my close friends. So I really just sort of recruited a bunch of people I love to hang out with. And it turned out, I mean, I knew they were great musicians, but it turned out that the chemistry when we were all recording was really great.
And was that an off-the-cuff thing straight away? It clicked, or did you guys have to find a way?
I think it took about 8 hours, you know, which even then we made something fine, you know. Like the second day of the process was the day we wrote a song called Little Window and a song called 2001, and they both made it. So like the first day we wrote a song, and again, I take as much responsibility as anyone. We wrote a song where I was like, this is fine. And then by day 2, we were writing stuff that I thought, oh, I love this. I'm going to put this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like actually when I listen to the album, although it's you kind of diving back into maybe past relationships and the process of overcoming hard moments there, and there's family mentions and various other different bits on this album, I kind of feel like it actually enhances the true requirement for friendship in life. You know, when
That's
you need those friends there during those hard moments.
Yeah, I'm a really social guy, it turns out. I really have a better time kind of in all things if I have, company. I mean, I live with Claudia, my partner, and there's a lot of mundane stuff in your life of like laundry and dishes and, making the bed every day. And I find that stuff pretty awesome with somebody that you love to be around. And then alone, I find it pretty depressing. And same with making music. I mean, like I have made a lot of music alone in a room, and there is satisfaction there because making music is satisfying, but it's 2 or 3 times as much fun if you have like a homie around. It's way more fun.
Yeah, the little quirks, the fun jokes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it inspires
it makes it,
you.
doesn't it?
Sometimes, even if like, sometimes, I'll just have my girlfriend in the room, because she's like bored and she comes downstairs to hang out with me, and she's not participating in the song, but just having her there to kind of like have a conversation, and then I get a little inspired by something, and you know what I mean? It's like, it's so nice to have a person in the room with you.
It's also that element of showing off a bit, I think, when your partner's in the room.
I think that's true.
Yeah, I get like that as well.
I think that's
when
true.
My wife's in the room.
Or I get embarrassed. Sometimes like doing a vocal is embarrassing, or like, in recording any of these parts, I'm like bombing half the time. I'm really messing up the piano part or the guitar part. So it's sometimes she needs to leave. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm too shy around you.
And so your, I guess, ability as a songwriter has really blown up, actually, listening to this album, I think.
That's very, very kind of you. Thank you.
Would I be fair in saying that it's probably down to this camaraderie, this friendship, these people pushing you along and bringing out the best in you, perhaps, do you think?
I hope so. I definitely think the combination of other people being talented, and also I went into it feeling pretty close to about half those people, and I came out really close to all of them. And you are sort of pushed to be more authentic in a room full of your close friends. Do you know what I mean? I think if I'm alone, I might sort of be writing about who I would like to be or who I think I am. And if I have like a person that's known me for 10 years right next to me, I have to be like, I know that this is actually the guy that I really am. Yeah. So I think it did push me to be more honest, which is good.
Do you mind if I pick up on some lyrics? Is that
Please.
Okay?
Yeah.
I wrote them down because
hell yeah,
my memory sucks.
I don't know about that.
No, it does. It's on The Same Old Story, which in itself actually is a fantastic song.
Hey, thanks.
The kind of like intergalactic piano work and production you did in that is brilliant.
Thank you.
Maybe we can talk about that in a second, but maybe Love is a Way to Kill Time is the kind of like first one that I heard
a little
early
morbid
on in the song. Yeah, it is a little bit, isn't it? But you end up by kind of concluding it might be controversial, but I am still young.
I'm still yours.
Or still yours.
Same Old Story is really a song about kind of, I think, the repetition in the challenges of being in a relationship, and I think there's like cyclical part of that song I think had to do with like a friend of mine was in a new relationship, and new relationships are so funny because the people often are like, they act a little bit like they've invented being in a relationship when they're first in a relationship. I'm sure I did that also. I'm in a relationship of 6 years, and there's like magical things still to discover, but it's such a different, I mean, you're married. It's like such a different experience.
You got to work harder to find the magic sometimes.
I think you have to be really sort of engaged in a way that I think sometimes people meet and fall in love really fast, and there's like the most regular questions that they haven't yet asked. They're like, they don't know each other's favorite color, or like, what's a childhood memory of yours? There's so much kind of surface level stuff.
When you're in that early stage, you're kind of rushing a little bit. You kind of, I want to get to the good bit, so you kind of you skip over those little bits, I think.
Yeah, so that song
you have to remain inquisitive.
Yeah, it's really true. So that song's, there's lines in that song of like, did I get boring or did I wear you out? Like these kind of lines. Like in some ways, it wasn't super autobiographical, but it's really just about the kind of feeling of like, am I the most interesting version of myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So love across this album isn't specifically attached to you. It's across different ways.
Yeah.
Different
I mean, I
people.
think I strived to be honest and real without kind of blowing up my life for the sake of art. I mean, I think you're always very prolific when you're heartbroken and you're in a terrible, strait. And I'm in a relationship that in many ways is really great. And, maybe there's a moment where we have a conversation that leads me to write a sad song or a love song or whatever it is. But I also am like, I'm not particularly interested in sacrificing like my regular life for art, I'm like, come on, I'm smarter than that. I can put myself in the shoes of the time 2 years ago that I was heartbroken or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you can be more imaginative.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a song with Billie about like being a doll. It doesn't have to all be like this thing that happened to me
No,
today.
you don't have to let it pass you by, actually.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
experience is what make you at the
Exactly.
end of the day. We're going to hear your cover of Fake Plastic Trees by
Yeah.
Radiohead. And this was a real highlight when you performed in the Live Lounge a couple
Thanks
of
so
weeks
much.
ago.
The Fake Plastic Trees is a song that I've probably known, for 15 years or something. But I think in trying to make this album, it was a song I played over and over and over again. And I think sometimes, first of all, I played it because I was so inspired. I think the lyrics of that song are unbelievable. And I love that it's a band in a room. I love that it's guitar and keys and drums and Tom's unbelievable voice. And I think sometimes it's really important to have a thing that you're inspired by, to know that it's there and that you're not trying to copy it or rip it off. Do you know what I mean?
But the feeling.
The feeling.
The energy that you want to
exactly. The
capture,
feeling. The feeling that song gives me. I was like, I want to put that. I want to wrap that feeling up into this album somehow without ripping it off. And so I think part of the reason I was really happy to cover it in Live Lounge was I was like, here it is. Like I didn't rip this song off, but I love this song.
It's the hardest thing to do
Yeah.
when making music in like here and now in 2024. Actually capturing true, real emotion, atmosphere, energy, all that kind of stuff, because it gets lost very easily through trying to follow trends or copy something else. It's the hardest thing to do.
Well, it's hard. I think, everybody should allow themselves to be inspired by stuff. And I think there's a John Mayer quote where he says, originality is when you fail to sound like whoever you're trying to sound like. And I really ascribe to that. I think that sometimes it's like the filter. I mean, in the music that I've made with Billie, I think a lot of what made that unique was these influences that were outside of, like, I was coming to her very influenced by singer-songwriters, very influenced by alt-rock, very influenced by My Chemical Romance. And then she was coming really influenced by mainly like hip-hop. She was coming like really influenced by Tyler, the Creator. And then there was a little bit like of classics like Julie London. And then you take all those influences and you put them through the filter of like a 14-year-old girl with a beautiful, very delicate voice, and then me trying to do these kind of like modern productions. And it has this really like weird flair. And then if you looked at it from the influences, it's very strange. But I think it's like, if we'd been influenced by Lorde, it would have sounded like a Lorde ripoff because the ingredients would have been too similar.
It's too fresh. It's too
contemporary.
Too contemporary.
Yeah.
Totally. Finn, it's been great having you here and
Thanks for having me.
dissecting For Crying Out Loud. And maybe let's stick on the title for a second and talk about it.
Let's do it.
I think it's my favorite album title of the year. One, because of how you captured it in the actual title track itself and how kind of soft and romantic and passionate that you delivered that line For Crying Out Loud, but also how when you just read it on paper, it's For Crying Out Loud. It's so angry, it's so frustrated. It must have been a phrase that you felt had possibilities.
Yeah, I've said it forever. It's a kind of a romantic song, and so I loved the sort of juxtaposition of this sort of like being super exasperated, but you're kind of singing about somebody you're like, I still love you. But yeah, I do love an exclamation point. I love the way that it reads. I love an album title that, to me, an album title is like a basket. Like everything has to fit in this basket and be kind of contextualized by it. And so I always look for that. This album had no title until I wrote that song, and that was the last song I wrote. So to me, I was like, okay, I know this song makes me see this album in a kind of a visual way. So I felt like it was a good title.
Can we just hear the raw vocal
course.
of For Crying Out Loud? Of
course.
Especially when you deliver the line as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how vulnerable you feel when doing that, but
Just playing isolated vocals?
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
you've
always
done
happy
this for
to.
long enough, right?
I've done it for long enough.
Yeah. And maybe describe to us how you felt delivering that line.
For crying out loud, I'm calling your name. You're wearing me out, but I love you the same. For crying out loud, your heart is a maze. You run in your mouth, but I'm singing your praises.
The other cool layer of that is Lucy did a bunch of vocoder over all of that, which I love.
For crying out loud, I'm calling your name.
Oh, damn.
You're wearing me out, but I love you the same. For crying out loud.
You don't necessarily
So
catch
cool.
that in the
It's
bare bones of it.
yeah, it's like it's
like-
like a blurry color in the background, but
But it
it's so
changes
cool.
the complexion of the whole thing. All of
I
a
love
sudden,
it.
kind of what we were talking about before with Sweet Cherries and the call
Yeah.
and response thing. All of a sudden,
So
you
cool.
have the other side of the story. The
Yeah.
other character maybe feeling the same.
Absolutely.
Or,
I
you know.
loved having David kept describing of like a voice that isn't yours singing harmonies is a really interesting, not in pop music right now, probably less common than it used to be. I mean,
Duets
you'd listen
rock,
to
you know.
yeah, like I mean, if you listen to songs from the 70s or 60s, they'd have a bunch of backup singers singing the backups. And now it's like, all right, we have infinite tracks and infinite time, so you're going to sing 1,000 harmonies. And I do, but it's like, oh, it's really satisfying to have a different timbre of voice. And in this case, a different gender, it's a real cool dynamic.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Do you mind if we talk Family Feud?
Please.
Yeah, I'd love to just kind of get your feelings and thoughts when writing Family Feud and maybe where you're at, because compared to the rest of For Crying Out Loud,
Yeah.
it feels a lot more solemn. It feels a lot more isolated, a lot more on your own, perhaps, compared to the rest of the record.
I wrote Family Feud the 5th day with everybody in the room, and everybody was playing really beautiful stuff. And I kind of, sometimes as a songwriter, I think it's a little like you're on the diving board looking down at like the pool, and you're like, I think I'm diving into that pool today. And so that was what happened with that song. I was in a place, Billie and I had just finished this like long like award season. We'd been playing the Oscars and the Grammys and stuff like that, and it was really satisfying and fun, but pretty stressful and high stakes. It felt like high stakes, and you're like winning and losing every weekend, which again is like an honor to win, but it also feels weird. And in that case, we're like quote unquote competing against like Mark or Dua or something, like artists that we love and people that we feel like are friends of ours. And when they'd win, when we'd win, it was all just sort of a strange experience. And I was just thinking a lot about the age that she then was. She was 22. I remember being 22 so vividly. I was 21 when I was at Live Lounge the last time. Like that's some time ago. And I remember getting kind of a lump in my throat every time I tried to sing the lyrics of the song. And I had to like go out and sit in my car and be alone for a while to sort of cope. And then I came back in, and I could only really do it if I had my eyes closed. But everybody was cooking on that one. I thought they were doing really beautiful stuff.
Yeah, that's a lovely song. It's a beautiful touch. And I think because of the importance of the emotion to you, it feels very powerful across the record, compared to everything else. What was Billie's reaction when she first heard it?
She was so supportive of it. I mean, I actually sat and played it for her, like just played it for her on piano first. I thought that was probably the sort of most authentic way to kind of present it, as opposed to like pressing play and her hearing, a room full of people play it. But yeah, she was so sweet. I mean, we've written songs together about each other, and songs like Everything I Wanted are kind of about our relationship. Yeah, I mean, it's very, there's so much love there. It's been a real beautiful, kind of heartbreaking experience having her on the road right now while I'm on the road separately. I call her all the time and, you know, check in and see how everything's going.
But it's kind of that thing that we were talking about earlier, you know, with you and your partner who
Yeah.
maybe comes downstairs when writing the music and adds that second opinion, that
Yeah.
different point of view. You know, you
Yeah.
can chat to Billie and
Oh, I
say,
mean, if
I'm having
she-
this experience. And
Yeah, I mean, Family
vice
Feud,
versa.
to your point, is like, family. I wrote that for her, and if she said, hey, I love this, but I don't want you to put it out, like, that would have made sense to me and been totally fine. You know, I think sometimes you write a song for one person. I mean, I've written many for my girlfriend, and those are kind of just for her. Like, she's happy to have them be public. But, you know, if she said, hey, I like this song, but you called it my name, and I think I'm going to just keep it, you know, that would make sense.
Yeah.
It's a little like if you painted somebody a painting and gave it to them. It's like, it's up to them if they want to put it in a gallery.
Totally.
They could just keep it in the bathroom.
Well, Phineas, thank you so much
Thanks for having
hanging
me.
out. This has been amazing to chat and dissect For Crying Out Loud. The brand new album from Phineas, it's out now. Phineas, thank you very much.
Jack, great to see you. Thanks for having me.